Welcome to the Old Glory Renovations Podcast, the podcast about home renovations from the home renovations experts. Hosted by Rob Hefner and Mike Landry. The Old Glory Renovations Podcast wants to show you how to enjoy your home renovations.
Rob's show taught me a lot.
Choosing the right contractor for the job doesn't have to be scary, and home renovations are built to enjoy and be fun.
I got so much more for my money.
Now, here are your hosts for the Old Glory Renovation Podcast, Rob Hefner and Mike Landry.
Hey guys, welcome back to another podcast of Old Glory Renovations. Today, we're going to be talking about exterior improvements, updates, room additions, and needed repairs. A lot of people don't like dealing with that stuff, but I'm telling you, when you hear what we got to say, you're probably going to pick up the phone and make a phone call. I'm your host, Mike Landry. I'm talking to Rob Hefner. He's the king of remodeling.
I am right here.
What's happening, brother?
We're having a beautiful day today. Got a lot of work going on, looking for more, like always.
I know you have a huge bottle of ibuprofen sitting on your table.
It's half empty at this point.
I don't miss it, baby. I don't miss it. I'm just going to tell you. Okay, so if you guys want to find some of these projects online, you can go check it out at oldglorytx.com, or you can check out our podcast, which we're doing weekly now. And we cover different subjects every week. So, the topics are what you're really looking for. What are you interested in? The first show you need to listen to so you can understand why Old Glory Renovations is the dominating remodeler in Houston, because of the value that the customers derive. But then go find the topic that relates to what you're trying to do, whether it's a kitchen remodel, a bath remodel, repairs, maintenance. It will help you understand your challenge and understand how you can prepare for this and ask the right questions when they're out on site giving you their estimates. All right, so Rob, let's get into exterior improvements. Now, we've got several different categories we're going to cover, but a lot of people are wanting to do updates to improve the function of the home by needing more space, or they're wanting to update by doing patio extensions, improving the aesthetics of the outside of the building, repainting just to update the look, changing or replacing fascia and soffits for improved ventilation, replacing style, the siding style, so that they can get up to date and current, adding a carport, extending the patio, extending the decks. You do a lot of decks around here. That's amazing.
Yeah, we stay busy with that kind of thing. I kind of like those, it's a light framing job. They're fun to put together, and there's a lot of interesting materials to use on them.
Well, you're out there, fighting the wars. You're talking to these people. When it comes to these exterior improvements, what are some of the motivations for them to make these investments?
Well, a lot of times it starts with something that they noticed going wrong. A leak at a window or a door that's not performing correctly on the outside of the house. And when they start looking around, they find other things that they want to get done. Step back and look at the house. It's your castle. Do you feel proud? Does it make you smile every night to drive into the driveway? If it doesn't, you can fix things on the outside of it, just minor updates, some of it, but paint, trim, that kind of thing on the exterior of the home can really make the house feel more like yours. So that, like I say, when you pull into that driveway, seeing that house just kind of makes you smile.
Well, and one of the things we're going to talk about later is repair needs, right? These are just things that have to be done to keep the house from falling apart. And you're on a project right now. You finish up tomorrow where the couple has one of those exposed carports, right?
Right.
And it's got like 8 wood supports that were actually installed in the concrete when they poured it, which rotted them out.
Well, it's 8 4x6 supports under a 2-car carport. And it's a nice carport. It's well placed and everything like that. But when they ran the 4x6s through the concrete, it just forced all that moisture to stay pressed right up against the wood, and predictably, it rotted out.
Now, if it was me back when I was remodeling, I'd have replaced all the supports, okay? And then I would have done what you did, because you have to deal with the hole in the concrete, because you're not going to stick the wood back in the hole, and build these brackets to attach those posts to the foundation. And but what you did is amazing, because you when you inspected the actual supports, the only thing that was damaged was what was underground.
The rot in the woods didn't extend more than a couple of inches up above ground, but it was definitely rotted underneath. So when we first looked at it, our thought was, okay, we need to replace all these 4x6s. Well, there was a soffit up above, and it would have been a very expensive job to do because of windstorm requirements and all that stuff that nobody wants to know about that goes into it. So we looked at a way to save the customer some money and still get the job done right. And I think we came up with a really, really elegant solution.
Well, I'll bet you that's what's been preventing them from actually moving forward. Because again, if it was back in the day, I would have looked at removing all the fascia, the soffit, reattachments, changing the supports, making brackets, which would have been a $12,000 job. What did you end up getting doing that job for?
Well, let me tell you what we did first. We took those posts that were still in good shape, like I say, up in the air where they didn't have water held against them all the time. They're still in good shape. We cut them off at 6 inches, and we took a metal bracket that fit underneath that post.
Well, you made the brackets were made custom.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And they were substantial.
They are substantial. Those things weigh 25 pounds apiece.
Yeah,
but you know what?
It was like 1/4-inch plate steel. I mean,
they're going to be there forever, though.
Yeah.
And we took those brackets, cut off the bottom, slid the new bracket underneath, and bolted it down and bolted it to the 2x6 and stepped away from that one. It's a really cool solution to it that ended up being a quarter of the cost of what it would have been otherwise.
If that structural support would have been installed the way it should have been installed on top of the concrete, it wouldn't be rotted right now.
Well, there's a lot of cool little support structures that fit. When you're looking at a piece of wood, especially pine, that's sitting down against the concrete, it's going to deteriorate pretty quickly. So there's brackets that fit underneath it to keep it elevated and out of the water, and they're metal brackets that strap onto the side of it.
Yeah, they're
to hold everything together and keep it where it needs to be. And
they're Simpson ties. Simpson ties.
That's who makes it.
And
Simpson.
If an engineer would have drawn that up, or they would have followed the plans, the engineer would have required that Simpson tie to be on top of the concrete and attached. But that's not what happened. And that's what happens all the time. When you go back and you look at a house that's been out there aging for 15 years, and it's got all this deterioration and damage on materials that are supposed to last 50 years, it's bad construction practices.
Construction practices change over time. There's a reason a lot of the houses we're building today are going to last a lot longer. Yes, the people will say, somebody out there is thinking, oh, the materials aren't as good as they used to be.
That is not true.
The processes are much better than they used to be. Code requires so much that it never did before. We're building some good quality structures these days.
A lot of the construction failure litigation is because the painter put 2 coats of paint instead of 1, or used the second coat paint as a primer, and the materials were breached. Like hardy plank. They were using nail guns, and the head goes into the fibers, which reduces the strength of that connection by 50%. And it voids the warranty on all those materials. It's like all of this stuff is installation dependent to perform, and each application relies on the other.
And that's the thing. The house is a single entity. So if it fails in one area, a failure is pending elsewhere. If you see water at a window, for example, there's going to be a problem somewhere else around that window. Nothing works in isolation. A lot of the problems that homes have deal with ventilation, both through the walls and through the attic.
Now, there's a lot of people wanting to, they did not like their electric bills this summer.
I was one of them.
Oh my God, it's horrific. And electric prices are going up. So a lot of these homes still have the little 12-inch vents every foot, the old style way. And what people are doing now to try to get more ventilation in that attic is they're replacing their fascia and soffits with continuous perforations so that there's venting every square inch of the entire linear footage, which lets more air up into the attic, reducing that heat load.
A house has to breathe. That we're not talking a breeze blowing through the attic, but there should be a constant supply of fresh air. And when we're talking about soffit, when you step out of the house and look up at where the roof overhangs the very top, that horizontal piece up there, that's the soffit. And if there's no holes in it, you're not getting ventilation through there.
Right.
And that lack of ventilation will cost you on your electric bill. It'll cost you in a lot of other ways.
Well, and it's always the cooling portion of your mechanical system is in your attic. Okay? So when you're trying to create the cool air to push it into the house to reduce the heat load so you're comfortable, you're producing it in a desert. It's 100 degrees outside and it's 130 in your attic. Okay. You're asking it to do an impossible job. And if you've got an older system, it's going to be challenged to overcome that heat load. So by having your fascia and your soffit replaced, you can update the ventilation, you can improve the look. There's a lot of houses out there where the production builders took a piece of siding that's about 3/8 of an inch thick and used that as the fascia instead of an 1.25 inches, or a 3/4 inch, Hardy.
I have,
or LP.
Yeah, I definitely see that, but it's interesting how changing small things on a house can change the whole attitude of the home. Replacing the soffit, replacing the fascia, repainting just that area can make the whole house look anew, make it look completely different. We talked last week about changing the doorknobs and the impact that you don't really notice, but it just looks cleaner and better and newer and fresher. The same kind of thing can be done on the outside.
Well, and the siding, if you're in a 30, 40-year-old house, that siding is going to be dated, right? You might have the old asbestos siding, which has a specific personality and style. You might have what was the T111,
right?
The press board stuff, which had a person. They liked the wood look, so they got something that was engineered versus a natural wood.
The vertical lines versus the horizontal lines. The lap siding, which is most common used today, generally something like hardy plank, just overlapping at every step. Those changing between those two changes the entire character of the home. And the old T111 siding you're talking about, I can't tell you how much of that we've had to replace. Matter of fact, we're hopefully starting a job next week, just depending on their vacation schedule.
A lot of the wood seals, most people do not maintain the paint on a scheduled time frame. So your window seals, your door trim, a lot of that stuff starts decaying and rotting. It won't hold paint. It'll be chipped. And that just accelerates the degradation if you don't do something about it. Resealing and recaulking periodically is a real important thing. You want to keep the water out because the water will tear everything apart, including concrete. So the key to these improvements is to update the style, update the feel, get new paint on it, give it an updated look, more contemporary, makes you feel good about your house, and it keeps it together for decades.
Well, if you have to spend the money to do repairs, take the time to do something to change the appearance of the whole house, to make it look better than it did before. Sure, the paint color helps, but nothing is going to last forever, and painting bad wood, painting bad design, it's still bad design.
People need more space now. So they're either doing a room addition for a mother-in-law suite with a bathroom and a master bath, or they're extending their master bath so they can get more room and create a more inviting space with maybe a bigger tub or a bigger shower. Bigger showers are super trending right now. There's even homes that have kind of low ceilings where they're taking areas and they can vault those ceilings up, even a couple of feet with a coffered ceiling or something, gives it so much more personality. And it's really not that expensive to do, but man, it makes a huge difference. And all of the production homes only having one ceiling fan and 4 recessed cans, adding some lights in there to give it more personality and more brightness is a very popular thing to do on big remodel projects. And these are simple things you can do for small remodel projects, because you actually take small remodel projects.
Well, I actually do, and those kind of things they're not hard to do. Like you say, vaulting up a ceiling. Just when you walk through a door that is 6 feet 8 inches tall into a room with an 8-foot ceiling, if you're 6'4", it might feel a little snug. But if you can bump that door up, bump that ceiling up, the entire space feels so much larger, even though you only changed it in one dimension.
It's really odd how much more space how much larger the space feels with proper lighting. Okay, so let's move to room additions. So we're doing exterior improvements, we're doing updates, room additions, and needed repair. So with room additions, like we were talking about, people are adding a new bath, or extending a bedroom, or adding a bedroom, or just extending the existing master bath to give them more space, more volume, to add more closet space, because women always need that, and a bigger shower.
We've seen a lot of master bedroom extensions. In other words, they have a master bedroom that might be 13 by 15 or something like that, and they just want to create some more space in there. So going through the process of just bumping out a wall 4 feet, we did one of those, and of course everything that goes along with it. Those are relatively inexpensive ways to increase the square footage of your house, for one, but make the space inside of it that much more livable and that much more yours.
Okay, let's talk about needed repairs. Okay, this is something that damn near every house that's over 5 to 7 years old needs some attention on something. So what are the most common things that you're running into with that?
Well, we're just going to stay outside on this one. Caulking being deteriorated around windows or anywhere else there's caulking. That is always something that we see. It's not always an immediate issue, but it is something that needs to be addressed. And generally that's done when the house is repainted. Repainting every 7 years or so, 5 to 7 years. When you get around some of the older homes from the 50s and 60s, the trimmers on the corners of the house, look at the back corners of your home where that siding is enclosed with those 2 pieces of material. Now look down at the bottom of it and see how much of that is just eaten away and rotten off. Those are the kind of things that we do a lot of. When you look along the side of your home where the weed eater normally runs and look at the damage that's done to that bottom board, well, that little bit of damage doesn't look like much, but it's allowing moisture to wick up into that whole thing, and eventually it's going to cause the whole thing to rot. So those kinds of repairs are what we do a lot of. Look at a back door. If a back door is exposed, in other words, there's no overhang on top of it, a lot of times you'll see deterioration of the sill, keeping water out against the floor, and the door jamb itself, the frame that the door rests in, will begin to deteriorate at the bottom on either side. And there's ways to fix that without replacing the entire door.
Okay, now here, squirrel damage. Now, let me tell you, squirrels and possums and all these little cool things, they love heat. And when it gets cold, guess where they want to be? They want to be in Daddy's hotel up in the attic.
No, that's in my chimney right now, because I got a squirrel problem on top of my house that I'm trying to break away long enough that I can get fixed.
Exactly. But you know what? That attic is nice and toasty and warm, because you want to stay warm. And they're going to eat through the metal. They're going to eat through the siding. They're going to eat through anything except brick that I've seen. And they're going to find a way in. Or some neglected vent that you've left some louvers off of or something. I guarantee you they'll be able to walk on water to get in there.
They do find creative ways to get up into the attic. And the damage that squirrels do is not necessarily as much inside the attic. It's in how they get in. Because if they can get in, water can too. And it just, there's a lot of those kind of problems. Like I say, I have to be aggressive with the one on my house. I was in a customer's house this morning. We were checking on the furnace and why it wasn't heating, just checking the pilot light. A squirrel jumped out from behind it and ran across the attic and disappeared.
That's not good, senor.
That's not good, but it sure happens. That's for sure.
They say, you know what? This is a good place to have babies. Nice conditioned air environment with a nice soft bed to lay on. This is perfect.
Nice soft insulation to get on.
Don't have to go anywhere to go to the bathroom. Just dump right here. It's all good. It's all good. Nice and healthy. Healthy living environment.
Yeah, but fixing those patches and repairs and making sure they're not. Now, we're not exterminators. We're not going to get rid of them, but we can sure repair the damage they've done.
Right. So, repairing fascia and soffit siding, this is the thing. If you've never seen these things, I had one of my framer cornice guys. He and I had an argument one day, and this was 20 years ago.
You argued with a framer?
Yeah. It was fruitless because he was right. So anyway, this is when I was probably 5 years into ground up construction. And this framer he decided he wanted to argue with me one day, and we were talking about hardy plank. And I said, this stuff is indestructible. Indestructible. It's concrete. He goes, Mike, how long have I been framing houses and putting corners on them? Let me tell you, son, 27 years, okay? Let me get your nipple so we can have a conversation, okay?
Yeah.
And he said, I'm going to prove something to you right now, and I'm not going to have to say a word. Give me that bucket over there. Took a 5-gallon bucket, filled it up with water. He took a 1.25 inch thick, one of the thickest, the thickest hardy trim that goes on fascia.
Yeah.
And he took and cut about a 3-foot piece off, and he threw it in the water. And I said, see, it ain't coming apart. He said, wait a minute, son. Come back in a couple of weeks. No, I tell you what, you come back in a week. Now, you're going to be here on the job site, but don't mess with this. Just wait 7 days, and let's come and powwow. And you don't want to put any money on it because I don't want to take from you. It was disintegrated. Disintegrated.
Now, anything, pretty much any product that you're putting on a house.
I was shocked.
I wouldn't be. Almost any product that you're putting on a house that's not properly protected from the elements, that's going to happen.
Yeah, but you know,
if he had properly primed that and painted it and put it in there, it'd still be there today.
Okay, so that's true. And Hardy, I think like 10 years ago, maybe 10 or 12 years ago, they stopped offering unprimed materials. They wouldn't even sell them anymore.
Right, because of that kind
improper
of
application of paint.
Absolutely.
Installing it not according to their specifications. So that's one of the things that kind of slows down the degradation, but bad installation is going to fail all the time, right?
Yes, it will.
So anyway, a lot of the other things like the older homes where you got the window seals that are rotting and the paint's dilapidating, the trim boards that trim the windows and trim the doors, those need to be updated and painted if you want them to last, because the damage is going to migrate into the structure eventually.
It does. It always does. And the thing is, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Okay, I would rather, for my house especially, I would rather pay the money to get it done now and get it taken care of. I'd rather spend $10 today than $400 later. That bay window we were talking about?
Yeah.
Well, just the bay window alone was right at $2,000. It could have been prevented 2 years ago with a $1.39 tube of caulk properly applied.
Exactly. And it's really hard to get across to homeowners. Redoing chimney caps, replacing door seals, things that go out because water's splashing up against it all the time. But these are the needed repairs that people need to go and take care of now while they've got time. Make the house look best for the holidays. Repaint the exterior. Give it a new paint job. You're talking like 3 or 4 or 5 days, and man, your house is going to look brand new.
Well, it's true. It can all come together pretty quickly, but that routine maintenance on a house, everything requires maintenance. Goodness, if you don't brush your teeth, they're going to fall out. So everything requires maintenance in some way. and keeping up with that maintenance and understanding what it is so important to homeowners to wrap their head around. Sure.
But you're the only company that's a professional remodeling company with a staff of guys that are on staff and work for you every day. They're not
Right.
trades. That this is the kind of stuff that keeps them busy in between projects. And you've got a whole team that are dedicated to just doing maintenance and repairs for people that are, $2,000 fixes and $5,000 fixes, and you fixed it in a guy's entire carport that I guarantee he was getting bids for $1,200 to $1,500, $15,000, $12,000 to $15,000 to fix it and repair it, not even replace it. And you fixed and solved their problem with a beautiful result for $3,500. They had to be ecstatic over that.
Absolutely thrilled with it. I got to get those pictures up on Facebook and stuff because it really is just an elegant solution to a common problem.
All right. You guys take this opportunity, spend a little bit of money, fix the things that are nuisance items to you and detractions from the aesthetic presentation of your home, and allow the systems to work, but spend a little money now or you're going to spend a ton later. Stay with us.
We'll be right back with more of the Old Glory Renovations podcast. Old Glory Renovations revolutionized the industry to put the customer in total control. There's little to no deposit to begin work, weekly invoicing only on completed work, weekly itemized labor and material cost for invoicing, eliminating wasting your money with overpriced turnkey estimates. Their trade labor are on staff and not subcontractors. They don't leave projects sitting dormant for days or weeks or waiting on a subcontractor. They have proper general liability insurance coverage. Call Old Glory Renovations now and take control while maximizing your buying power. Old Glory, trust, honesty, confidence. Taking the fear out of home improvement. 281-546-8836 or online at oldglorytx.com. The Old Glory Renovations podcast, helping you enjoy your renovations. Now let's get back to Rob and Mike.
Hey guys, thanks for sticking with us. It's Old Glory Renovations podcast. You can hear us every week covering different subjects that benefit you and things that you can take advantage of. You can find us at 281-546-8836, 281-546-8836, or go online to oldglorytx.com. Rob, let's talk about some of the projects. Let's go over a couple of projects you got going right now. Let's talk about Melinda in Pearland. Her project's $19,500. Tell me about Melinda.
Well, Melinda's one, when I mentioned earlier, you see a problem and then you start looking and you find other things and tie them all together. This started as a stain on the sheetrock underneath the big bay window. She felt it. It was a little bit damp, realized it was a leak, and started looking around and called us out there to give a bid on that as one component. But there were so many other things from once she met us and she's like, you know what? I trust you guys. I want to replace all the flooring in my master bedroom. And that was something she'd been wanting to do for years, and she was excited about it. The cosmetic piece that we did on the front of the house with a fresh coat of paint and fixing up a couple other things there, it really helped the way the home looked. Repainting the garage. Remember those 2x8s on either side of the garage door? Those were beginning to get rotten. Replacing those as well and cleaning that up just freshens up the whole house and the way it looks as you pull into that driveway.
She replaced 4 windows that had failed. She couldn't even see out of them anymore, right?
Yep, those double pane windows are awesome as long as they hold together, but that's either argon or a vacuum inside of them. And once that seal is perforated, they will start turning frosty on the inside, hard to see through. You'll get spots on the inside of the glass. Replacing them is not a big deal. It just has to be done.
Well, and then the other thing, the last part of the project was her updating several hardware items that restore that sex appeal and that newness to her space.
Right. She's an older house, and it had. Remember, we talked previously, it may not have been last week, about those old gold
Yeah, exactly.
doorknobs and stuff.
Somebody
Well,
got rich on those things about
yeah.
30 years ago, 40
Really.
years ago.
Well, she had those, and those were beginning to flake and just not looking good. And she made a comment about it, and I said, "Well, we can fix those. It's this is how much it costs." And she said, "Well, let's just go ahead and do it." And I never want to upsell a client, but I do want to make sure my clients are taken care of and we get the result they want. And she wanted to feel better about the home inside and outside, and she wanted to fix a water leak. And we got all three of those things done.
I'm sure she's very excited about the results.
Very happy.
Okay, let's go to Webster on a $22,000 project for a gentleman by the name of Palandro.
Well, this is one I probably underbid, to be perfectly honest.
That sounds like a Mexican superhero.
No, actually, he's I don't know where he's from, but Europe somewhere. I don't remember.
Europe?
He
Hey,
told me.
Sounds a little
He told me.
Hispanic there, but that's all right.
Real nice folks. Him and his wife. The front door just had an old style. Now you remember in the '80s those round columns were kind of the thing.
God,
All right. Well,
put in a ton of those things.
his front door had a round column on either side of it, and a couple more going down the front porch. And he wanted to get rid of those round columns, replace the front door, make it look like it was, designed in the last 50 years. And that's what it started with. Once he started looking around the house, those 2x8s around the garage, we had those we added to the bid. That bid was interesting because there were 7 different items on it to include painting the exterior, enclosing another section of the yard so his kid could play outside a little more safely. That was about 60 feet of fence that we were going to add to it, fixing a back door, fixing some trim on the outside. 7 different items on the bid. He looked at the bid and said, "Well, you know what? I have a budget. How about if we do number 1, 2, 4, and 7 and 6?" We ended up doing 5 of the 7 items that we bid. And the way we bid, I can just zero out those other ones, and there's your new bid. No problem.
Well, the interesting thing is that if you were using subcontractors instead of your own staff guys, you've got trim carpenters, framers, you've got tradesmen, journeymen. I mean, you got all the disciplines on your staff.
Absolutely.
And so the difference is if you called me and told me that, I'd have to take the bid back and sit down and rework all the numbers because I fudged a lot of stuff and I don't remember where I put the fudge. Right. And every one of the trades is going to want a deposit to start.
Well, if I'm using all trades, then I have to get a number for everything that I'm bidding on from the trades. And modifying what it is I'm bidding on for them is a significant emotional event. It makes it very difficult to change a bid once submitted. So with my guys, I just tell them, "Hey, number 4, don't do it. We're not going to."
Yeah, but you're set up on a cost plus. Your clients are paying material and labor and overhead and profit on work completed, not 50% up front to get started.
I'm set up to give my customers control of their product, of their project, and make sure that project goes the way it's supposed to, that somebody is there every week, every day, and that they're not paying ahead. They know what they're getting. I'm set up, focused on what the customers need.
You know exactly how many labor hours are included because they're your guys, and that's how you detail it on the invoices. You know exactly what materials, and this cost $1.95, and this cost $2.25, and there's this many of that. It's all in a detailed invoice that you get weekly. You don't have $50,000 of their money sitting in your bank account deciding when you're going to do something and at what rate with just gross numbers. How much you going to charge me for the paint, Mike? Well, let me think. It's looking a lot like $7,000, maybe $8,000.
I say, well,
how'd you come up with that figure?
Well, what I do is I say, well, let's see.
I've been doing this for 20 years.
I know.
That's the answer.
But
I've been doing this for 20 years.
I don't do that. I say a gallon to cover about 250 square feet. You got 1,000 square feet. That's 4 gallons. 1,000 square feet. I should be able to paint 100. I get into the weeds on it, and we don't want to get into that here. But I can show you the calculations on how we bid paint, and it's time and material.
Yeah, but that's the reason that you're actually doing construction projects for forensics accountants, because they have all the details and you don't have all their money.
I don't know how I've attracted a couple of accountants in my recent jobs, but there's been a couple that just want to see everything, and I'm fine with that. I keep it all here. It's just a matter of sending a file. No big deal.
Well, one thing is, this is great. This is a great time for the holidays to get this stuff going. They've got a lot of capacity. They're totally booked with big projects starting in January, so they've got a lot of free time. They love doing these smaller projects for people to help them out in hopes that one day that they've provided some great value and on some nuisance items that need to be taken care of. And they're taking pride. This is a full size remodeling company that shouldn't be even looking at projects below $35,000. But that's not the way he structured this business, because he wants to provide a legitimate service and an ongoing relationship with their customer, whether you need to change some doorknobs or whether you want to add a second story to your house. And that is an evolution in our business, let me tell you.
I have bid on both of those jobs, adding a second story to the house and just replacing doorknobs in the last 3 weeks.
Old Glory Renovations. It's the only company you're going to find structured like this, probably in the state of Texas, if not the entire country. 281-546-8836. 281-546-8836. Give them a call today. Find them online, oldglorytx.com. Rob, thanks for your time, brother.
I'm glad to be here. Looking forward to hearing from you folks out there. And Mike, thanks for everything.
See you next week.
That's all for this week's Old Glory Renovations podcast. Tune in next week when Mike and Rob help you enjoy your renovations. Find out more at oldglorytx.com.